All right, so let's pull back the curtain on the digital world for a minute. We're going to talk about where all our stuff, our photos, our apps, our data, actually lives. We're going to go on a little journey from these private, self-built castles of data to the massive public utility we now call the cloud. It's a huge shift, and it all starts with a really simple question.
I mean, really think about it. Where does the internet live? It's not just floating around in the ether, right? It's all in real physical places, on actual physical machines. The fascinating part, though, isn't just the hardware, but how our whole model for managing that hardware has been completely revolutionized.
You know, to really get where we are now, we have to rewind the clock. Before the cloud was even a thing, if you were a company with data, you had one option: build your own digital fortress. A private castle designed from the ground up to house and protect your most valuable digital treasures.
And boom, this slide right here, this is the main event. This is the central idea for our whole explainer. On one side, you've got the castle. That's your classic private data center. You own it, you run it, it's all on you. On the other side, you've got the utility, the cloud. You don't own it, you just rent access, kind of like electricity or water. So what did it really take to run one of these castles?
Well, the whole mindset behind that classic data center was all about one thing: control, absolute control. You buy the land, you pour the concrete, you buy the servers, you run the cables, you hire the security. Every single piece of it is yours, which sounds great, right? But with total ownership comes total, and I mean total, responsibility. So let's look inside this castle. In the biz, they call it a classic data center, or a CDC. Think of it like this. The applications in the database, that's the royalty living inside. The servers, that's your compute. They're the workforce doing all the thinking. The storage, that's the treasure vault. And the networking is the whole system of roads and bridges that connects everything together.
And here's where it gets really serious. Because you're the king of the castle, you are 100% responsible when disaster strikes. And that forces you to answer two terrifyingly important questions. First, your recovery time objective, RTO. That answers, if we go down, how fast do we have to be back up? And second, your recovery point objective, RPO. That's how much data can we literally afford to lose forever. The stakes, incredibly high.
Okay, so if the castle offered all this control, why did we move away from it? Well, it turns out that in the fast-paced modern world, those big, rigid castle walls started to feel less like a fortress and more like a prison. The whole model started to show some serious cracks.
A huge part of the problem was just money. Building a castle meant a massive upfront cost. It's called capital expenditure, or CapEx. You have to buy everything, servers, storage, the whole shebang, before you even make a dime. The utility model completely flips that on its head. It's all operational expenditure, or OpEx. It's just a predictable pay-as-you-go monthly bill.
And this slide really nails the other pressures. Businesses needed to be way more agile. They had to launch new stuff in weeks, not years. They needed to scale up for Black Friday and then scale right back down, but you can't just shrink a castle. And maybe most importantly, companies realized their smartest engineers shouldn't be worrying about air conditioning units. They should be building cool new products. The castle itself was becoming a massive distraction.
So with all these problems piling up, the stage was set for something totally different. A new model emerged: cloud computing. And the idea was actually pretty simple, but it was absolutely revolutionary. Instead of every single company building their own expensive, inefficient castle, what if a few giant companies built these massive, hyper-efficient data power plants that anyone could just plug into? Now, the official definition here from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, it's a bit of a mouthful, right? Let's just break it down. When they say on-demand and rapidly provisioned, they just mean you get what you need instantly, no waiting. Shared pool just means you're tapping into this giant collective resource. It's really all about getting computing power when you need it and only when you need it.
Honestly, this is the absolute best way to think about it. You don't build a power plant in your basement just to turn on the lights, right? Of course not. You just plug into the grid and pay your bill. The cloud is the exact same idea, but for computing power instead of electricity. Simple as that. So what officially makes something the cloud? Well, according to that same definition, it has to have these 5 key things. It's got to be self-service. You can spin up a server without ever talking to a human. You can access it from anywhere. You're part of that giant resource pool. You can scale up and down instantly. That's elasticity. And crucially, it's a measured service. You only pay for what you use.
So you've decided to abandon your castle and plug into this new utility. Awesome. But it's not something that happens overnight. You don't just flip a switch. It's a really carefully planned journey that every single organization has to figure out for themselves.
And that journey usually follows these 5 big phases. You start by preparing, by assessing what you even have in your castle. Then you have to plan out the move. Next is the big one. You actually migrate and execute the plan. Once you're there, you have to operate in this new world. And here's the kicker. It never really ends. You're constantly optimizing, trying to make things better, faster, and cheaper.
So let's just bring it all home with a final showdown. The entire digital world has basically moved from the castle model, huge upfront costs, fixed capacity, and super slow to change, over to the utility model of the cloud, which gives you that flexible, pay-as-you-go price, elastic capacity, and the incredible speed that modern business absolutely demands.
This whole shift from private castles to public utilities has fundamentally reshaped, well, everything. It really begs the question, though, what's next? What's the next massive evolution for where our data lives? What comes after the utility model? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.